For a number of years, I used to visit people's homes as part of a 2-by-2 evangelization effort. I had a layperson with me, and one of the questions that we would ask the people we visited, which you can think about right now, is the question: if you were to die tonight and the Lord asked, "Why should I give you eternal life?" what would you say? Why should I give you eternal life? Now, you can try this on your own as a kind of a survey. But I'm telling you, all the people I ever asked that question to, only one person really hit the nail on the head. Most people would say something to the effect, in their answer to "Why should I give you eternal life?" "Oh, I consider myself a good person," or "I go to church." Begin talking about themselves. But one man really stood out from everybody. He mentioned the mercy of God. The point is that salvation is a function of God's mercy. And I'm not saying that going to church is not important. Of course, it's very important. In fact, people, Catholics, let's say, who come to Mass every Sunday are a manifestation of the mercy of God, because they're given the graces to come and they're responding accordingly. Salvation is a gift. It comes from God. It's not because we're worthy of it. And it's a good thing He's merciful, because we couldn't be saved. Now, in the second reading, St. Paul gives his personal testimony. He admits that he had been an arrogant man, a blasphemer. A blasphemer is somebody who insults God. It's a very serious sin to do that. And then he goes on to say that by the mercy of God, I am what I am today. The great missionary and apostle, whose body is interred under the flooring of the church in Rome called St. Paul's outside the walls. Wonderful statue in St. Peter's Square. But think about it. A more unlikely candidate to become this great apostle, I can't think of one. Were it not for the mercy of God, there would have been no hope for Saul of Tarsus. Now, what about the Blessed Virgin Mary? She had never committed a sin in her life. When her cousin Elizabeth praised her for being a woman of faith, Mary did not take any credit for it. She says, "My soul magnifies the Lord, who has remembered His promise of mercy." How did He remember His promise of mercy? By sending His Son. Jesus is the mercy of God in the flesh. God so loved the world that He sent His only Son, that we might not perish, but might have eternal life. That's the mercy of God. We live in a culture that does not support mercy. In fact, the term mercy is seldom used outside of the church context. Some people, I suppose, think it's a sign of weakness. We have aspects of our justice system that are downright harsh. There's no mercy. Hollywood, for years, has been producing films which have as their storyline something about somebody wanting to get revenge on someone else. There's no mercy there. And even in day-to-day living, how many people, even people who claim to be disciples of Jesus or Catholic disciples, have very little patience with the weaknesses of others? Where's the mercy? I remember some years ago at my home parish, which unfortunately is now closed. The candlesticks up here are from that parish, St. Rose. A woman came to be one of the speakers for our Lenten program. Her name was Dr. Beverly McMillan. Dr. McMillan had opened one of the first abortuaries in the South, Alabama and Mississippi. For years she worked plying this grisly trade. Then one day she saw the light, actually over a period of time. Life was empty. She had everything she wanted in terms of money, cars, and so forth. So she began thinking about things. This reflection led to prayer. Prayer opened her up to God's mercy. She turned to God. She ended up coming back into the church of her girlhood, this time as a serious Catholic. She went into a legitimate medical practice, respecting life. She wouldn't even prescribe contraceptives, which any doctor really should take her example. Any doctor concerned with life, the dignity of women, the sanctity of marriage. So she came to speak at our parish. Some people were upset with her because of the past. But God forgave her. We should never be scandalized by God's mercy. We should be very happy that people are reconciled to God. And one of the things I do as a priest, as you well know, is hear confessions. I hear confessions of all types. I've been doing this for 30 years. And there are some great examples of people who come back from lives of sin. Sometimes people dabble in sin, which is not good. But there are many people who find healing, wholeness from the sacrament of penance. The prodigal son, in the parable, made his confession to his father. I have sinned against God and I have sinned against you. Confession was very sincere. He made no excuses. He opened himself up to his father's mercy. Now, some people might say, well, if God is so merciful, why is there a hell? Seems to be a reasonable question. Well, I'll tell you why. Hell is for people who reject God's mercy. What more can he do? The Lord does not impose himself on anyone. Just doesn't do that. Something like the sun. The sun shines all the time. A person can close the shade and live in the darkness. Many people have closed the shades. We need God's mercy. When we come to Mass on Sunday, that should be one of the foremost things we think about. Why are we here? God is bringing us here. Not without our freedom. He's calling us to be here. He's feeding us. Talking to us in word. Offering the body and blood of the Son. For our sustenance. We are the sheep of his flock. That's profound reality, which is a great sign of the mercy of God. There would be no church without the mercy of God. There would be no saints. There would be no sacraments. There would be no Bible. There would be no prophecy. We would have no hope. The mercy of God is our hope. The thing is, we don't really deserve it. Which just goes to show how wonderful God really is.